Raskin. I'm a writer and mental health advocate.
And I'm Gabby Dunn. I'm a writer and bisexual icon, wink, which I promise is a thing.
Many internet years ago, we started a YouTube channel called Just Between Us that has since morphed into a podcast by the same name.
It's a variety show filled with heartfelt advice, ridiculous games, and brutal honesty.
We have new episodes every Wednesday.
Find us wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Mom and Dad Are Fighting, Slate's parenting podcast for Thursday, October 27th, the Separation Made Simple edition. I'm Jamilah Lemieux, a writer, contributor to Slate's Care and Feeding parenting column, and mom to Naima, who is 9, and we live in Los Angeles.
I'm Zach Rosen. I make another podcast. It's called The Best Advice Show, and I live in Detroit with my family. My oldest Noah is 5, and my youngest Ami is 2.
I'm Fiona Kong, founder of the Home Sweet Homes Journal for co-parenting families. My son is named Emil. He's 6 years old, and we live in Los Angeles.
Well, Fiona, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you. And just selfishly, as a co-parenting parent, I'm always excited to have another co-parenting parent on the show.
Same here. I'm excited for this conversation.
Well, today on the show, we've got a question from a listener at the beginning of her separation journey. She wants to make sure everything goes as smoothly as possible for her 5-year-old son, and we're going to give her some advice about raising a child across 2 households. Then on Slate Plus, we're going to check in on our Halloween plans. Here's what you'll hear if you have Slate Plus.
Noah this year is going to be Rainbow Sparkle Rose.
That's what I'm talking about.
Just a character, I think, that she made up.
That is a costume, Naima.
Yeah.
We have a special announcement for you today. For a limited time, you can get 6 months of Slate Plus for just $29. That's 50% off. As a member, you'll get no ads on any of our podcasts, unlimited reading on the Slate site, and member-exclusive episodes and segments from our show and other shows like Slow Burn, Amicus, and Political Gabfest. If we've become a part of your listening routine, we ask that you support our work by joining Slate Plus. Sign up for Slate Plus now at slate.com/momanddadplus to access all Slate's content and support our work. Again, that's just $29 for 6 months through October 28th. So sign up now at slate.com/momanddadplus. All right, we're going to catch up on our weekend parenting, but not before a quick break. See you back here in a second.
Mom and Dad Are Fighting is brought to you by Progressive. What's one thing you'd purchase with a little extra savings? A weighted blanket, smart speaker, maybe that new self-care trend you keep hearing about? Well, Progressive wants to make sure you're getting what you want by helping you save money on car insurance. Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save over $700 on average, and customers can qualify for an average of 6 discounts when they sign up. Discounts like having multiple vehicles on your policy. Progressive offers outstanding coverage and award-winning claim service. Day or night, they have customer support 24/7, 365 days a year. When you need them most, they're at their best. A little off your rate each month goes a long way. Get a quote today at progressive.com and see why 4 out of 5 new auto customers recommend Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National annual average insurance savings by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2020 and May 2021. Potential savings will vary. Discounts vary and are not available in all states and situations.
Do you need help finding holiday gifts kids will actually like? Well, KiwiCo is here to help you give more than just gifts. They're here to show you how to give awesome. I know from personal experience that this stuff is actually awesome. I'm actually holding in my hands right now this astronomer starter kit that I've been working on with my daughter. She's 5. She's really into it. And it comes with everything that you need. What you will learn to do as you're building a model of the solar system, you also will discover the history of space travel. You'll visit the International Space Station, launch a shuttle, find out which planets are giant balls of gas. It's so cool, and it all comes in this box that's very manageable and something that, frankly, I would never have had the creativity or foresight to do on my own. But KiwiCo makes it super easy. There's something for kids of all ages. There's no commitment, so you can pause or cancel anytime. Give awesome this holiday with KiwiCo. Get your first month free on any crate line at kiwico.com/momanddad. That's your first month free at kiwico.com/momanddad.
All right, we're back. Fiona, as our guest, do you have a triumph or a fail to share with us?
I do. I had my son for a few days last week, given that I co-parent. And one day, this was Friday afternoon, and I think after the whole week, kids are tired. There's a lot of energy, and, it's been a long week. So we were at the park, and things were going fine at the very beginning. Towards the end, things started falling apart, and he was with some of his other classmates. And all of a sudden, there was a lot of kindergarten drama breaking out. Some of the kids started arguing, and it was just kind of a symphony of, these big feelings. All of a sudden, my son, he was curled up in a ball on the slide, and he was sobbing. And of course, you're wondering, like, what happened? And, so I went over there, and he didn't want to tell me. And in those moments, it's right. The thing you can do is just let them move through it, right? Yeah. There's just not much you can say or do. When he was finally able to tell me, he said his friend had told him, "I don't want to hear from you." And that had really hurt his feelings. So I make it a point so that every night we talk about our feelings and kind of review our day so that he has a chance to reflect. And we didn't get a chance to do it until Saturday morning. And he has a journal where it has 5 faces, and there's it ranges from happy and, sad, mad, and there's a crying face. And he ended up circling all of those things. And I was like, what made you feel like that? And he mentioned it again. He said, I don't want to name the friend, but she told me, "I don't want to hear from you." And apparently it was really in his heart, right? He had slept all night, and he woke up and he was still thinking about it. So we got to talk it out and say, it's normal to have these feelings. And, that girl, she was mad herself. And sometimes we say things that we don't always mean. It doesn't mean that you're not friends anymore. But, there's times where, sometimes we make a mistake and we say things we don't mean. And, it was just a good moment where I think he was able to open up.
And I can't help but think of this girl who said it. Like, it's so likely that someone said that to her, like an adult in her life. Because a kid doesn't come up with language like that. "I don't want to hear from you.
I don't want to hear from you."
It's a very adult phraseology, So I'm sad for her that it's likely that someone probably said that to her. And now she's trying to, exorcise it in the only way she knows how.
It sounds very likely, because that's not kid language in the slightest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is great that you all were able to have an exchange of feelings in that way.
Yeah, amazing.
And that, that he's so communicative about what he's feeling inside is really important. You've obviously done a great job giving him the language to talk about how he feels.
We want them to tell us, right? No matter what, good or bad.
So true.
Zach, what about you? You have a triumph or a fail?
I have a triumph. As a Jew, I've been thinking a lot about Kanye and just the rise in anti-Semitism in the country, just hearing stories everywhere about hate speech and this stuff on the rise as the backdrop to the really wonderful season of Jewish holidays we're in the middle of right now, and just the ways in which we've been able to fold my youngest Ami, who's 2, he's involved, but like Noah, my 5-year-old, is able to start to understand the holidays and really get excited about how we celebrate and why we celebrate, and just kind of relishing in the ritual, which my wife and I have tried to be really intentional about. Like starting a couple weeks ago with the holiday of Sukkot, and then there's another one called Simchat Torah. We've just been like taking her to our synagogue or to the synagogue events that have been happening around the city, and congregating with other folks who are also Jews in Detroit, of which there aren't so many. It's just so cool to see what it actually looks like when we hand our rituals down to our kids, and for them to actually be excited about it and to ask questions about it, and to kind of do it in community in a way that is fun to us. Like growing up my Jewish upbringing was fine and great in a lot of ways, but I was never like excited about it. And now I'm seeing Noah get excited about it, and then I in turn get excited through her, and it's just this really special thing that I'm not taking for granted. I'm just like super like, wow, we are raising a Jewish child in Detroit and doing it in the way we want to, and it feels great.
I'm so envious of anyone who's really like found community where they live, you know. I mean, that's what happens when you move away from where you grew up, you know, and keep moving. But that's awesome that you all are able to come together and celebrate the holidays, and that your kids are, you know, I just think it is every time you talk about
Bruno,
your Jewish stuff, you know, I just think it's really cool. And we have the same commitment when it comes to Naima and, you know, and her culture. But I think it's really important for families to introduce their children to their heritage in a really meaningful and thoughtful way, and to normalize it, you know, for it to not just be a special occasion thing, but just a part of who you are.
Yeah, thanks.
It's some of these traditions that we keep up, you know, that we can talk about from generation to generation that makes our childhood and sharing it with the next so special.
Yeah. Shout out to you from being of a religion that has so many holidays. That's got to be nice.
We got so many, especially in the fall.
So many. Yes, I'm aware of it because I've raised a child in New York and LA.
Yeah.
So ask me how I know.
Yeah. Love it.
They get those days off, which is very cool. All right. Well, my fail is that I have become a baker again. My triumph is that I've become a baker again. I realized that, like, we always have cake or brownies or cupcakes in the house now. Like, we are making these things like every other week, sometimes week to week. Last night we baked cupcakes, and it was very important to Naomi that we baked cupcakes.
Yeah.
That the cupcakes even got baked was a triumph because we didn't get home until 6:45, and like we'd had to put the cupcakes off for a day, and she was devastated about that because we didn't get home until late on Sunday. And she was like, "But you promised," and I'm like, "But it's nighttime. It's like late. You know, you have to go to school in the morning." And so we made black and white cupcakes last night. They came out, they were good. I have an exacting standard for baked goods. I'm very particular about them, but she really liked them. I think they're decent. I think there's room for improvement. I think they're a little dry, but we got them from the New York Times cooking section. They're like vanilla cupcakes with chocolate chips in them and a chocolate icing. But yeah, like we just can't stop baking over here.
I mean, it's such a great bonding activity.
Yes.
Yeah, Noah and Shira do it a lot. Do you watch baking shows together?
I don't. No, we haven't. Maybe we should. The only like baking show we've ever watched was Nailed It.
That's so fun.
Oh, that's funny.
So fun. Yeah. On that note, let's take another quick break. We will see you in a second with our listener question. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp Therapy Online. Unfortunately, life does not come with a user manual. So when it's not working for you, it's normal to feel stuck. Therapists are trained to help you figure out the cause of challenging emotions and learn productive coping skills. As the world's largest therapy service, they've matched millions of people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists available 100% online. All the benefits of in-person therapy, plus it's more convenient, more accessible, and more affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with the therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. Get unstuck with BetterHelp. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/MADAF. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/MADAF.
Hi, I'm Allison Raskin. I'm a writer and mental health advocate.
And I'm Gabby Dunn. I'm a writer and bisexual icon. Wink, which I promise is a thing.
Many internet years ago, we started a YouTube channel called Just Between Us that has since morphed into a podcast by the same name.
People ask us all the time, what is your podcast about? And honestly, it's a bit hard to describe because it's kind of about everything.
I like to call it a comedic variety show with a bunch of different segments.
Ooh, that's good. Each week we start off by catching up with each other.
Then we answer a listener's question after I sing a little song for no real reason.
So cute. Followed by interviewing incredible guests such as public defenders, mental health professionals, and animal scientists.
So that's the show. And if you're still pretty confused, which honestly, fair, you can check out our back catalog of over 200 episodes.
We also have a brand new episode every Wednesday. Video is available on YouTube and audio is available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Time now for our question. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm the mom to a really wonderful 5-year-old. He just started kindergarten this year and has transitioned well overall. This is wonderful because we may have a new change coming. His dad and I are thinking about separating. We've started discussing how we're going to make this work. He's thinking of moving cross town. Far, but not far enough where he can't be involved in our son's life, and it'll make joint custody easier when we get to that point. I'll probably be the primary parent as his job is requiring him to travel more now. What I want to know is, how do I make this as seamless as possible for our son? Is there any way to make going back and forth between homes easier? We're just at the beginning of this process, and I'd love some tips and advice, as I'm sure there's a million things we're not even considering in terms of making this easier on our son. Thanks, to home soon.
I have so many thoughts on this. I wish we had 2 hours to talk about it. I've been co-parenting for 3.5 years now, so I was definitely at this starting point then where you're trying to make the best of the situation for your child. And I heard this really good quote on Instagram, and I don't know who it's attributed to, but essentially it was, do you want a child-centered divorce or a divorce-centered childhood? And that context was just so powerful to me because, you know, when I had to start approaching it, it's this whole big mess, right? You're rearranging everything. You know, I actually ended up moving out, and so there's just a lot of dynamics happening, and you want your child to be okay. Of course, that's the first and foremost thing. So I had like a whole list of things. I actually put together a guide on how to make transitions easier. And I would say the top, I'll do 2, maybe 3 things, is 1, you know, you are the rock for your child. That for me meant, you know, taking control of my healing, my happiness, my well-being. And if you don't put your own life jacket on first, you can't take care of your child in the best sort of way. So as I said, just taking time to heal and do things for yourself is probably one of the best things. And also focusing on, if you can, that relationship with your co-parent. And I know it's not always possible because, you know, there's, you know, on their end, they may be a narcissist and it may be high conflict, but you know, if anything you can do for your child, it's, you know, don't speak badly of them in front of your child. Don't argue or fight in front of them. I actually spend a lot of time reading, you know, comments from adults who went through divorce as, you know, their parents were divorced. And a lot of them say they remember the fighting and the arguing, like that's what sticks in their mind. And that's something that I would never, no matter what, right? You know, don't put that in front of your child. The second thing I would say is give your child consistency and predictability. You know, their whole world is being turned upside down. Like they have to most likely, right, live in 2 homes. And that schedule is, I think, a real challenge. So we started using a visual calendar for my son when he was 3. And he was able to use it, right? Like, and we were on a 2-2-3 schedule. So none of the days were the same, right? So it would, like, I didn't always have a Monday and Tuesday. It would vary every other week. And I think having that visual for him made him feel safe. You know, you can print one out. I actually created a journal specifically for co-parenting families. It's a journal and a planner that stays with a kid between homes, and it has their schedule and it has journal space every night where we can talk about what happened. In many ways, they're being bounced back and forth between homes. And how will you know what they're struggling with unless you ask?
Jamilah, I want to hear your perspective on this. I just had a quick question for both of you. Do either of you either, on an ongoing basis, or did you at one point have a conversation with your kid's other parent and like establish ground rules of like how to be?
So when we first separated, it was, I would say, it wasn't highly contentious, but we weren't very friendly, and we are now. Like, it's been an evolution of, like, when we first started, you're dealing with your own emotions, and we would only talk about anything related to our son. Mm-hmm. He was 2.5, so we did have to have a lot of those conversations about, how we, do things in both households so that he could have consistency. We were able to do that. I don't think it's, some parents aren't there yet. We would have an official meeting, and that's something we did, and we never talked about like our personal stuff, and it was kind of weird, like having a business-like meeting, but that's what worked for us. And eventually, we're in a really great place now. We've taken family trips together, but it wasn't like an overnight thing by any means.
We've been co-parenting Naima since birth. We broke up, prior to finding out that we were expecting. So we've always been doing this, and it was a contentious breakup and a difficult situation early on. But from when Naima was born, there was just this kind of unspoken agreement that we were just going to make things work. But no, we never talked about ground rules. We never had a formal parenting conversation. In the early days, our talks were very limited, just logistics. And this thing happened, this many diapers, this observable rash, this happened. That's it. Like, we weren't talking parenting pedagogy, like I would assert things that I wanted, I think she should do this. I think she should have that, but we didn't really become collaborative until, a few years in, and, over time became, friends in a way, and have like a really amicable relationship, and have done holidays and things together. But no, like, it's kind of scary what we've been able to do without officially talking about it. We're in constant conversation about, Naima and how we navigate certain things now. But, I do realize that there are two different households. The other factor is that in her other household, there's another mom and another child, and so I think both households are led in a lot of ways by the mother energy, and it's similar in a lot of ways and different in other ways. And so I think that if it were just Naima that we were dealing with, there would probably be some things that we'd be talking about that we're not talking about, because since they're also parenting another child, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of hard for me to, like, some of the things that I wish that maybe we were all on the same page about. It's like they've got their own parenting pedagogy and set of things that they feel and need and believe in, and their own child, and so for me to challenge that, in service of my own child is difficult. But I would still think of us as being relatively collaborative.
Yeah. And I know that the listener also asked about logistics, like what would make going back and forth easier. I assume, like, kids have 2 sets of toothbrushes and stuff, but what are some like non-obvious things that you've figured out logistics wise that helps to make life easier?
A wardrobe.
Double wardrobe?
Like a wardrobe that you enjoy in both houses, so that there's no like, oh, I wish I had this, but it's always at so-and-so's house. And you can keep we generally, sometimes things stay over here, but I usually try to send them back, so that they have their full wardrobe of clothes and things to choose from. And I have the one that I've purchased. What else? Favorite toys for a 5-year-old, things, comfort items, favorite foods. Yeah, I think in terms of like things to remember, those are the ones that stick out the most for me. In terms of other logistics, I would say trying to establish a rhythm that you try to adhere to, a schedule that can be flexible where it needs to be, but that feels like a schedule, like, so you start having rituals. And like, as Fiona mentioned earlier, like saying it out loud, like, I'm going to drop you off at your dad's house today and I'm going to pick you up in 3 days, you know, and like acknowledging that. I know there were times where I think we were just so busy and doing so many things that there would be things coming up and Naima wouldn't know, you know, and I'd be telling her last minute, like, oh, Dad's picking you up tonight. And she's like, huh? You know, but you always pick me up on Wednesdays. I'm like, oh, but Dad has to do it because you all are going somewhere. You know, it's like she really needs to be like, your child really needs to be like clued in on changes to the schedule and like have some idea of what their time with you all is going to look like. It shouldn't be haphazard. And if Dad's travel schedule is such that it can't help but to be haphazard, you still need to figure out rituals with him, phone calls, Skype calls, or FaceTime or whatever. Like there needs to be some dad time rituals every week, you know, so it doesn't feel like a disruption once he's in town.
It's also true, just being flexible is so key, I think, in the beginning when it's a tough time for them. One of the traditions that I do is actually like a welcome home tradition to welcome my child back home. And you talked about this, like you having a favorite food. I started picking out books from the library and I would put a new book on his nightstand every time he came home. And he would always be like, oh, a new book. One last tip that I feel has been also helpful for us, especially for younger kids, is I started going to the library and getting books that talk about separated homes, two homes, and families, diverse family types. Because when you think about children and they think, hey, I'm supposed to have my family under one roof, you know, they don't know anything otherwise. So there's so many good books now for divorced families that talk about, you know, just living in two homes that help give them perspective and normalize it for them.
I always mention the Kids Book About series as being really helpful. There's a series of books called A Kid's Book About, and they cover topics like divorce and terrorism and abortion and, you know, other things that are challenging to talk about with the kids. But, you know, I think you should get a bunch of those books. And like Fiona said, diverse books, you know, ideally books that look like your family and some that don't look like your family, but just really normalizing this experience. You know, that there are people all over the world, you know, kids your age, younger or older, that are going through this same experience because this is very common. There are very few children's books that feature single parent-led households, you know, and it would be really nice for your child to start reading those. You know, there are books that are sometimes about children that are going through a divorce, you know, or children that divide their time between two households, I guess. But I haven't seen too many of the ones that are about co-parenting or about single parent-led households. But if you can find some, you should. Okay, well, to home soon. We're wishing you all the best. Please keep in touch. We love to know how everything goes. We really appreciate updates. Everyone else, if you have some advice to offer, please send us a voice memo or email us at momanddad@slate.com. That's also where you can send us any questions of your own. And that's it for our show. Fiona will be back with us on Monday for another question and everyone's favorite recommendations. So be sure to tune in. And while you're at it, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss an episode. This episode of Mom and Dad Are Fighting is produced by Kristie Taiwo-Makanjuola and Rosemary Belson. For Fiona Kong and Zach Rosen, I'm Jamilah Lemieux. Thanks for listening.
Raskin. I'm a writer and mental health advocate.
And I'm Gabby Dunn. I'm a writer and bisexual icon, wink, which I promise is a thing.
Many internet years ago, we started a YouTube channel called Just Between Us that has since morphed into a podcast by the same name.
It's a variety show filled with heartfelt advice, ridiculous games, and brutal honesty.
We have new episodes every Wednesday.
Find us wherever you get your podcasts.